Hi, it's Virginia here for First Chapter Fridays. Welcome. Today I'm going to be sharing a book with you called Amina's Voice, and this book is by Hena Khan. And this is the story of a young Pakistani American girl. Her name is Amina, obviously, and she is trying really hard to adjust to middle school and all the changes that go along with that. And let me just get you started with the jacket again. The jacket right here. I'll read that to you and see if it grabs your interest. I hope it does, because it certainly grabbed mine, and I really enjoyed this book a lot. Amina has never been comfortable in the spotlight. She's happy just hanging out with her best friend, Sujin. Except now that she's in middle school, everything feels different. Sujin is suddenly hanging out with Emily, one of the cool girls in the class, and even talking about changing her name to something more American. Does Amina need to start changing too? Or hiding who she is to fit in? While Amina grapples with these questions, her local mosque is vandalized and she is devastated. In Amina's Voice, readers will witness the power of a young girl using her voice to bring people together. All right, let's get to the first chapter. That sounded really interesting to me. And, something that maybe we can all identify with a little bit. Chapter 1. Something sharp pokes me in the rib. You should totally sign up for a solo, Sujin whispers from the seat behind me in music class. I shake my head. The mere thought of singing in front of a crowd makes my stomach twist into knots. But you're such a good singer, Sujin insists. I pause, enjoying the praise for a second. Sujin is the only one at school who knows I can sing, and she thinks that I'm amazing at it. Every Tuesday we argue about the best contestant on The Voice and who deserves to advance to the next round. I can count on Sujin to end the conversation by saying that I am better than most people on that show, and that I deserve to be on it someday. But what she doesn't consider is that if by some miracle I was standing in front of the judges and live studio audience, I wouldn't be able to croak out a word. I shake my head again. Come on, Amina, just try it. Sujin is a little louder now. Girls, is that chatter about you volunteering? Miss Holly stares at us from the front of the classroom with her eyebrows raised. Ouch, I yelp. It's Sujin's pencil in my side again. Is that a yes, Amina? Should I sign you up for a solo for the concert? Miss Holly asks. How about one of the Motown pieces from the 1970s? I sink lower into my chair as everyone stares at me, and I stumble over my words. No thank you. I'll just stay in the chorus, I finally manage to mutter. Okay, Miss Holly shrugs, a frown clouding her face until Julie Zawacki, waving her hand like an overenthusiastic first grader, distracts her. Julie always wants the spotlight and tends to sing extremely loudly. It's as if she thinks volume makes up for her lack of pitch. I always wonder how the math class next door gets any work done whenever Julie starts belting. But I still wish I had even half the guts that she does. Remember, we've only got 2 months to prepare for the winter choral concert. This is a big deal, guys, Miss Holly calls out as the bell rings, and we file out for lunch. I can't believe you didn't sign up, Sujin complains, as we sit down at what has already become our usual spot in the lunchroom 3 weeks into the school year. This is your big chance to finally show everyone what you've been hiding. I'm pretty sure that was what Adam, the judge with sleeve tattoos, said to the tall red-headed girl on The Voice last Sunday night, and I tell her that. I'm serious, Sujin says. It's time to forget about John Hancock. Just the mention of that name brings back the memories I've tried to block since 2nd grade. Our class play about American independence. I was John Hancock and was supposed to say one line. I will proudly sign my name in big letters. But when it came time for the performance, I looked out into the audience, saw the sea of faces, and froze. There was this endless moment when the world grew still and waited for me to speak, but I couldn't open my mouth. My teacher, Mr. Silver, finally jumped in and said my line for me, with a joke about how John Hancock had lost his voice, but was going to sign his name extra big to make up for it. The audience laughed and the show went on while I burned with humiliation. I can still hear Luke and his friend jeering at me from the side of the stage. That was forever ago. We're in 6th grade now. You need to get over it, Sujin sighs, as if my entire middle school future depends on performing a solo in Miss Holly's blast from the past production. I don't let her see how much I agree with her and how badly I want the spot. Anyway, do you think that I look like a Heidi? She continues. I have a mouthful of sandwich and stare at her as I chew, relieved that she's changed the subject. I try to imagine her with a name I associate with Swiss cartoon characters, or a famous supermodel, not my 12-year-old Korean best friend. Not really, I finally say after swallowing. Why? What about Jessica? Do I look like a Jessica? Sujin asks and picks carrots out of an overstuffed sandwich wrapped in white deli paper. No, what are you talking about? I got it. Sujin sits back and crosses her arms. She's hardly reassembled her sandwich, and it's already half gone. No one I know eats as fast as Sujin. It's one of the many ways we are opposites. I can't ever finish my lunch, no matter how hard I try. What? Melanie. I totally feel like a Melanie, and I love that name. Sujin flips her long black hair off her shoulder and acts like she is meeting me for the first time. Hi, I'm Melanie. What's wrong with you? Are you feeling okay? Sujin pretends to pout. Just tell me, who do you think I look like? Sujin, I say slowly. I put the other half of my sandwich back into my bag and pull out mini pretzels. You look exactly like Sujin. Sujin sighs again, extra loudly, just like she does when her younger sister pesters us to play with her. It seems like I'm getting that sigh more and more lately, ever since the start of middle school. That's because you've always known me as Sujin, Amina. Yeah, that's my point. What's your point? I hear a familiar voice behind me and turn around. A small blonde girl is carrying a cafeteria tray and a jumbo metal water bottle with the words, I am not plastic on it. Emily. Her green eyes and tiny nose remind me of my next-door neighbor's bad-tempered cat, Smokey. Nothing, I say. I wait for her to keep walking to the other side of the lunchroom, where she always sits with Julie and her crew. What are you guys talking about? She asks. I wait for Sujin to answer, expecting her to say something to send Emily scurrying. Even though the cat gets my tongue when either Emily or Julie come prowling, Sujin never has any problem telling them exactly what she thinks. But Sujin just says, I'm thinking of new names for myself. New names? That's weird. Why? Emily starts a stream of questions, and as much as I want Emily to leave, I want to hear the answers. It's not weird at all. Actually, my family and I are becoming citizens soon, and I'm going to change my name. Wait, so that means you're not even American? Emily sounds offended. What? I asked. There's no way I heard Sujin right. Change your name? What for? Sujin smooths her hair, sips some fizzy juice, and takes a deep breath. We moved from Korea when I was 4, and we aren't American citizens yet, but we are about to be. And I'm going to change my name. I just haven't picked one yet. Oh, I have the perfect name for you, Emily volunteers. She plops down her tray on the table and smiles like she is about to spill a juicy secret. Fiona, she says. Fiona? I snort, as in the green ogre girl from the Shrek movies? No. Fiona, as in my uncle's Scottish girlfriend. She's totally pretty. I flash Sujin a look, but she doesn't notice. Instead, she actually seems to be pondering the name as if it's a possibility, an ogre name suggested by Emily. And then Emily suddenly starts to shove herself into the space next to me. I don't move at first, but when she's nearly in my lap and Sujin still doesn't say anything, I scoot over to make just enough room for her. Then I lean across this table and I stare hard at Sujin. Why is Emily sitting with us? Ever since before Sujin moved to Greendale from New York in third grade, Emily has worked extremely hard to be Julie's best friend. Mama would say Emily was Julie's chamchi, which means spoon in Urdu. That doesn't make a lot of sense, except that it also means suck up. And Emily has always sucked up to Julie, even if that means laughing really hard at her dumb jokes or chiming in when she puts everyone else down. And by everyone else, I mean mostly Sujin and me. Fiona, Sujin repeats. That's kind of nice. Do you like it? Emily asks me. Nah, I don't know, I stammer. Do you seriously think she looks like a Fiona? Duh, she can look like anybody she wants, can't she? Emily turns back to Sujin. My face grows hot. Don't you like being Sujin? I asked my best friend in a low voice, leaning across the table to make it harder for Emily to hear. You've been Sujin your whole life. Aren't you used to it? I want to add that we had always been the only kids in elementary school with names that everyone stumbled over. That is, until Olainka came along in 5th grade. It's always been one of our things. Really, Amina? I thought you at least would understand what it's like to have people mess up your name every single day. Sujin lets out her sigh again. And this time, I feel like I deserve it, even though I don't know why. Mama told me once that she picked my name thinking it would be easiest of all the ones on her list for people in America to pronounce, but she was wrong. The neighbor with the creepy cat still calls me Amelia after living next door for 5 years, and my last name? Forget about it. I could barely pronounce Kokar myself until I was at least 8. And since I don't want to embarrass anyone by correcting them once more, I just let them say my name any way they want. Sujin is the only one at school who gets it. Whenever a substitute teacher pauses during roll call and asks, how do you say your name, dear? I don't even have to look at her to know she's rolling her eyes. We still collapse into giggling fits as if one of us mentions the lady who called me anemia as in the blood disorder. But now, all of a sudden, Sujin wants to be a Fiona or a Heidi? Does it have something to do with being in middle school? What other names do you like? Emily asks. She's so interested in the conversation that she hasn't touched the limp grilled cheese sandwich on her tray yet. I lean back and chew my pretzels while Sujin repeats her other choices to Emily. Ooh, I like Melanie too, Emily says, as I watch them chat. The lunchroom starts to feel like someone's cranked up the heat. My palms get sweaty and I feel super thirsty. And not just from the pretzels. I look around and find Julie sitting at her usual table, talking with a couple of new girls from another elementary school. She doesn't seem to even notice that Emily is missing. I don't say another word until Emily gets up to put her tray away and go to the bathroom before the bell rings. Sujin is a pretty name too, I say in as normal a voice as I can. And I'm not just saying it because I'm used to it. I want to add that I can't imagine calling Sujin any of those other names, and that I would feel like I was talking to an imposter, but I don't. It seems like Sujin wants to hear that. Thanks, Sujin's face softens. You know, a lot of Korean people have 2 names, a Korean one and an English one. Yeah, but you didn't have another name before, so why do you want one now? I always wished I had a different name. Besides, my whole family is picking new ones. Sujin's dad already goes by George, and her mom is Mary, so their names would just become official after they take the oath to become citizens. I call them Mr. and Mrs. Park anyway, since my parents never let me call any grown-ups by their first names. Everyone is auntie and uncle or Mr. and Mrs., but Sujin taking on a new name just doesn't seem right. Can I still call you Sujin? I ask, after swallowing hard to clear the lump that has formed in my throat. I want everyone to use my new name and get used to it in middle school, so it's normal when we get to high school. It would be messed up if my own best friend didn't do it. Sujin peers into my face expectantly. You will, right? Yeah, I will, I promise, although I cross my toes inside my shoes. I decide I will call her Sujin for as long as possible. The knots tighten in my stomach again, churning the half sandwich, 7 mini pretzels, and 3 bites of cookies sitting inside. I watch Sujin put her empty containers back in her lunch bag, looking for a clue to why she's acting so bizarre. But even though I can't explain why, something about Sujin wanting to drop her name makes me worry that I might be next. And that is just the first chapter of Amina's Voice. If that captured your imagination and you want to read more about Amina, feel free to put it on hold, put Amina's Voice on hold for library takeout, or you can also read it through our ebooks. It is available on Overdrive as an ebook, and also on Hoopla as an audiobook. So if you like to listen to books, you can get this one in audio form as well. Listen to it when you're doing some chores or anything. Driving in the car, it's a fun way to pass the time. I do enjoy a good audiobook. All right, well, thanks for listening and tuning in. Tune in next week where we'll have another great book for you to choose from or to hear about, see if it interests you. Take care, everyone, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.